A through Z book, Monumental Sculpture Through the Ages and Across the Globe. Written by Luis Miranda and filmed by Luis Miranda. Augustus as a general. Augustus succeeded Caesar when he was only 19 years old as a young boy. Not only was he young and great, but he was also considered the son of a god. Caesar was made a god after his death. His portraits were mass-produced by an unknown artist around the Roman Empire. He was always portrayed as useful. His sculptures are basically based closely on the sculpture of Polykleitos Doryphoros. Cupid symbolizes the divine descent. Here the empire is guiding his troops and shows the power. Barlac's War Monument. In 1927, Ernest Barlac created the War Monument for the Cathedral of Gosral. He usually worked with wood, so he made single-handed sculptures with drapery flowing. He tried to get into human emotions such as grief and self-comfort. He used symbolic figures that would speak more than just a heroic hero in battle. This sculpture appears to be the soul rising up for everlasting life. Constantine. After Constantine had a victory in battle against Maxentius, portraits were mass-produced. In his eternally youthful head of state and battle. This is a part of a sculpture. The whole sculpture is not portrayed. This part of the sculpture is only the head and is 8.5 feet tall. The portrait was originally like the Roman images of Jupiter. The emperor originally held an orb and possibly a cross, since he was the first emperor who established the Christian religion for the Roman Empire. The huge size shows power and control. David by Bernini. Bernini devoted most of his life to St. Peter's Basilica. He is famous for his architecture, but he's even more famous for his sculptures. He was a Baroque sculpturist. He portrayed David with muscular legs with form and widely planted. He is about to throw a rock at Goliath, which is not portrayed. His faith is concentrated against his opponent. Easter Island. The Moai stone sculptures found on the island of Rapa Nui, also called Easter Island, provide a contrast. These sculptures are around 40 feet tall. They stand on stone platforms, and on these platforms they used them for religious ceremonies and burials. Some of these have pukao, which serve as a hat. These are known for the Moai rulers and deities. 4 crowned saints. The Nani sculpture was trying to resolve the problem of Renaissance integrating figures and space on monumental scale. Nani displayed deep respect for human statues, and even though he tried to portray the Roman sculptures, he succeeded by adding no face expression, which was like the Roman sculptures. The Great Sphinx. The Great Sphinx was made besides the Great Pyramid of Khafre in Egypt. It was carved from a spur of rock in an ancient quarry, the colossal statue largest in the Near East. This is probably the image of the Khafre. The Sphinx, which was a lion and a human. This portrayed the human intelligence, but at the same time, the king of beasts and the power of the lion. Heroic portrait of Trebonius Gallus. This was the successor of Trajan Decius. Trebonius had a really short reign, made with bronze casting. Trebonius was as the emperors before him were also portrayed. He was also portrayed in heroic nudity. In the sculpture, he was a wrestler's body, and though unlike the Greek athletes admired by their emperors, he had a nervous expression. Interior or Temple of Ramses II. These pillar statuettes were 30 feet tall. They were the king of appearances of Osiris. These pillars carved from the cliff, like the pharaoh's facade portraits, have no load-bearing function. The statue column also continued with the world when Greece made the statue and the column with the girl. Jean-Baptiste Carpeux, Ugolino and his children. In Ugolino and his children, Carpeux shows that he used a combination of artistic ideas from different artworks and art techniques. He was combined by using realism, Baroque, and ancient sculpture, and Michelangelo's work. This sculpture was based on Inferno Dante. Although there is no specific style or technique to call this artwork for the contemporary art Japanese art, this is a part of natural sculpture though. Kimio made works with branches. His goal was to bring out and present life of nature emanating from his energy of trees. It is as he said, it is as the wood of this part of myself, as though the wood has made the same kind of force. Lipsius Farnese Heracles. This sculpture was made in late classical Greece. The Farnese Heracles was made at Baths of Caracalla, Rome. These sculptures portrayed Lipsius' muscle-bound Greek hero coming to the baths to exercise. Lipsius made the muscle so big that without that stand, the sculpture would have toppled over. Monument to the Third International. Tasman's most favorite work was the Monumental to the Third International. He could picture a huge glass iron building that would have been taller than the Empire State Building. This is just a model. On the site, which would have been Moscow, it would have served as a propaganda in the center of the Soviet people. This reinforced them politically and socially. Nike of Samothrace. The Nike of Samothrace was on the front of the Greek warship. This is a theoretical effect. This is showing the lightness and the movement of the goddess. It gives us a sense of the drapery is being blown by the wind. This was Hellenistic and Baroque manner. The Hellenistic statues interact with the environment and appear as living, breathing, and intensely motivating human presence. Olmec head. The Olmecs were also called the mother culture of Mesoamerica because their new tribes could be traced to them. The Olmecs were very religious, and either a god or a deity, either a god or a ruler, this was portrayed very huge, showing power. This stone it weighed 10 tons. With the size of the head, it shows the power of the ruler. Polikitos Doryphoros. Polikitos invented the canon proportions, in which he created the Doryphoros. The Doryphoros is an embodiment of Polikitos' vision of ideal statue of a nude male athlete or warrior. The Doryphoros marks an evolution from the archaic boy to the Greek Critios boy, and later to the race warrior. The contrapposto is shown with it before, with a technique called chiastic balance. Qin Dynasty. The army was made out of terracotta. The army contained chariots, men, cavalry, archers, etc. All of these soldiers were produced by sculptors of the first emperor of the Qin Dynasty, and they created all of them in different ways. Some of them have different drapery and equipments, but the changes were sometimes slightly. But this is very impressive, though, to create a huge army and so for everyone to be different. Rodin's Borghese of Calais. The monument was made to commemorate the 100 Years' War. Each figure was emotion like defiance, despair, and sculpture so the viewers would have continued interest. Some of Rodin's sculptures were left unfinished. Rodin's ability to capture the quality and trajectory through the highlight of textures, surfaces, while relieving larger themes and deeper, lasting sensibilities explained the impact it had on the 20th century. Smith's QB series. Original David Smith worked as an automobile plant in 1925. Since all the time that he used metals, he became really good with handling metals and large-scale objects. Therefore, he was able to do the QB series perfectly. The QB series usually contained rectangular bars, cubes, and other shapes. Cylinders were also stacked all upon each other to express the emotion of whatever he wanted to feel. Tillman's Rimishire and the Assumption of the Virgin. Tillman Rimishire depicted the Virgin's Assumption to the heavens in the center of the Kreilingen altarpiece. Gothic forms were incorporated to this altarpiece. This is the Assumption of Mary. And the drapery appears that the sculpture never stops moving because the drapery is flowing and because the people are staring at the Virgin. Untitled Kiki Smith. Kiki Smith was very interested on who controls the body. Smith wanted to observe the body and see how eternal forces shape people's perception of their bodies. Smith has fluids. When the women, he has them in her breasts, and for the men, he has them in her legs, meaning that functions of her body are hidden from the society. Vera Mulkina, the worker and the collective farm worker. Mulkina produced a monumental sculpture appreciating the Soviet people's work. Mulkina was a realist and relied on it to get the message across with citizens. There is a male worker and a female farmer worker who were both raising their instruments, portraying the work and the Soviet people, but they're also portraying the Soviet flag. Walking Man. Rodin, a realist, created the Walking Man. Rodin loved the human motion that he created. The walking man is an inspiration of an effect of light and three-dimensional surface. This is portrayed when the force from the back is being transported to the front, and to the front from the back to the front of the body. The movement is captured at that exact moment where the hip has all the force of the body. Extravagant Steel D portrayed the ruler 18 Rabbit. Steel D represents one of the city's most important rulers, Waxlahun Uban Kawil, known as the 18 Rabbit. During his reign, Copan grew at the largest size. He holds a double serpent bar where the symbol of absolute power. The sculpture is on high relief, and the original painted this hieroglyphic and the back of the steel. Yeyushan Rent collection of the courtyard. With the overthrow of Qing Dynasty, the Republic of China was born in 1912. The collection was about 100 yards long, and it contained more than 110 figures. He tried to portray the people in all times for the People's Republic. The messages produced that was people thought of wanting a republic before it was even established. Zuccone by Donatello. This was a capital figure, meaning that it was on top of the bell tower, and it needed to have much dramatic fall so it could be seen from all the way from the bottom.